strong animals didn't start fights. They hunted for food. The roar had a lot of powerful magic that made the other hunters fall to their knees. The beast laughed. Are you afraid? Predators enjoyed catching their prey.
Thomas wasn't gonna quit though.
He tried to make a fist with his hurt hand, and threw a punch. Bang. The creature didn't even react. As he looked into the creature's blank eyes, Thomas remembered something tall and endless, like a very high wall. He had felt this way before. It was odd how the monster's eyes looked like Jinwoo's. Why was that? Thomas couldn't finish his thought because the monster started hitting him, making his head move back and forth. Bang. Ouch. That was just the start. Bang. Bang. The monster's punches kept coming, just like what happened before, but now Thomas was the one being hit. He kept attacking and attacking, showing everyone how a strong attack should look. Pow 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 cow 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 cow. I see a rat hiding over there. Quickly the creature put his hand into Thomas's shadow and caught something. He pulled it out. It was an ant shadow soldier, struggling hard but unable to get away. Screech! Shadow monarch soldiers couldn't be defeated easily, but this one was especially strong. The Fang monarch was a powerful being and could use his energy to make things disappear. Beva! An ant soldier cried out, turning into dust and vanishing completely. The beast smiled as the gray dust blew away in the wind. Thomas had gotten back on his feet and quickly moved behind the beast, grabbing him in a tight hold around the head. It wasn't over until the very end. Even though Thomas had hurt his hand, his arms and shoulders were still strong. He pushed with all his might, strong enough to bend a metal pole. Puff, puff. Thomas tried to control his fast breathing, while he kept attacking. There was no going back now. He knew he wouldn't get another chance if he failed. He squeezed his eyes shut and tightened his jaw. A horrible cracking sound filled the air. He hoped it was the beast's neck breaking. Yes, but quickly the rush of excitement faded, and Thomas cried out in pain. Osh! Osh! The beast had caught his arm and broken it. The large creature grabbed Thomas's head and slammed it onto the ground. It made a loud noise. People watching on screens had to look away, because Goliath's arm was moving uncontrollably. It was a terrible thing to see, and the awful scene continued. The creature jumped onto Thomas and began to bite and tear at his body with very sharp teeth. Thomas cried out in pain. He struggled to fight back, but it seemed he couldn't win. Blood flowed out and bits of skin and muscle were thrown around. The people watching from a distance gasped and stepped back at the terrible scene. The people who were hoping for safety had all run away, very scared. But one hunter quickly moved from the crowd and crashed into the large animal. It was a surprising attack. The animal was enjoying its victory and thinking about what it had taken, so it wasn't expecting this. Thomas saw Leonard moving over the animal and tried to tell him something was wrong. Run. But Leonard shook his head. I'm a hunter too. Even though he wasn't as strong as Thomas, Leonard had made a promise to himself when he decided to become a hunter. He would never abandon someone who needed help. Thomas wasn't in his hunting group, but Leonard thought of him as a good friend because they were both fighting the same enemy. No matter what Thomas thought, Leonard had to stand his ground. Still, just looking at the creature made him shiver. Leonard's legs shook as the animal growled. Angry that it had been bothered, Thomas noticed that the hunter was trembling and tried to speak, but it was difficult. You'll be killed. Leonard knew this was true. He hadn't brought his equipment, and his strongest move, running forward quickly, had only moved the creature back a little. Being called Germany's strongest, or one of the best hunters in the world, didn't matter now. He didn't feel sad about his choices. Even if this was the end for Leonard, he would make the same decision every time. It was better to die bravely than to live in fear. Leonard remembered this as he faced danger. He knew he had made the correct choice. The creature rushed toward him quickly, its mouth opening very wide as if to swallow him whole. Leonard threw a punch as hard as he could. Suddenly he remembered everything that had happened in his life. It had been mostly easy, because he had a special power. He thought he had lived a good life. Leonard smiled as he looked down at the large creature in front of him. He knew he was doing the right thing. He had lived a good life until the very end. He closed his eyes, thinking he would never open them again. As the creature opened its mouth to swallow him, suddenly a loud noise startled him. Leonard's eyes flew open. What was happening? The creature had been knocked back many meters, falling to the ground because of Leonard's strong punch. The road was broken, cars had been moved, and some of the streetlights were bent. What happened? He wondered if he had a power he didn't know about. He looked down at his hand, then noticed someone else standing next to him. "Oh," Leonard said, sounding surprised and happy. Hunter Jin Woo sung. He almost didn't make it. If Jin Woo hadn't sent a shadow soldier with Leonard, when he went to the guild office, he probably wouldn't have arrived in time. After Jin Woo confirmed the shadow soldier following Thomas was gone, he quickly tried to switch places with the only other soldier nearby. Who would have thought it would be the one connected to Leonard? Because of that, he was able to save both men. Jin Woo quickly checked Thomas's injuries and breathed a sigh of relief. They were bad, but Thomas would be okay. Thomas was too tired to talk, so he just looked up at Jin Woo, who nodded silently. He was grateful that Thomas had given him some time. When Jin Woo turned around, Leonard rushed over, very upset. "Hunter Sung," he exclaimed. "Thank you for stopping the monster. Could you please take Thomas to a safe place?" Jin Woo asked Leonard, nicely, in English. Leonard nodded eagerly. It would be easy compared to fighting the monster. "Of course I can help," Leonard said. He carefully helped Thomas stand and quickly went with him. Jin Woo then looked at the beast, which was slowly getting up. He felt a strong and angry energy coming from the creature. It was much more powerful than any other magical beast he had seen. He had a feeling he was right. This dangerous being had the same powerful energy as the ancient ice elf Jin Woo had fought before. It was one of the monarchs, beings who wanted to harm the hunters. But this one wasn't scared like the ice elf had been. Even though they were disturbed, the creature seemed peaceful and relaxed. It was strange. For a being that looked like a mix between a person and a wild animal, he was surprisingly calm. Jin Woo wondered why, as the creature stepped out from the broken pieces of stone and dirt. He moved something around in his mouth, then spit out chipped teeth. The large creature looked surprised. "So the stories are true. I can smell the dark creature mixed with the human scent." The creature sniffed the air, very interested. "But how can a normal human have so much power from another world? I've gotten stronger, you know." Instead of explaining, Jin Woo took out his sword, Timish's Wrath. He had many questions for these people called monarchs, but he decided to ask them after he defeated the monster. Jin Woo felt very angry as he looked at the remains of those who had been hurt all over the street. A voice he would never forget came from near the monster. "The architect likely has a plan. The Shadow Monarch and the architect have been working together for some time now." The light fog around them began to swirl and gather, forming a shape like a person. Was that the ancient ice elf? The frost monarch who had been hiding in the fog finally appeared. It wasn't surprising that Jin Woo realized the fog around the city was strange as soon as he felt it. Another voice spoke from behind him. "So can I eat this person now?" Jin Woo turned to see where the high-pitched voice came from, and saw something amazing. Buzzing sounds filled the air, bugs crawled out of the sewers, and formed a group that changed into a large woman. "I've always wondered what another powerful creature would taste like." Jin Woo's face became serious as enemies showed up everywhere. His shadow soldiers weren't stopped to keep him from interfering with their hunt, but to hide how many enemies there were. It was a trick to catch him. Alerts popped up on his screen. "The Frost Monarch, ruler of the Snow Folk, now considers you an enemy. The Fang Monarch, ruler of beasts, now considers you an enemy. The Plague Monarch, queen of insects, now considers you an enemy." 3 very powerful enemies revealing themselves at the same time made Jin Woo's heart beat fast. Boom, boom. This was exciting. Jin Woo smiled. The bad guys thought they had him trapped. But he wasn't alone. Actually, the monarchs were the ones who were surrounded. Jin Woo paid close attention, so he wouldn't miss anything. The monarchs did as he called out his army. "Come out." All over the world, in cities like New York, London, Shanghai, and Paris, everything stopped that day. People paused what they were doing, watching news reports about a terrible event happening in Seoul, the capital city of Korea. Everyone already knew about a huge gate that had appeared, so news of the attack traveled fast. Television channels in many countries stopped their usual shows to share the live video. People were shocked by the pictures from the air showing the streets of Seoul covered in blood. If a busy city like Seoul was in such bad condition, many feared the same thing could happen everywhere else. The sad event felt very personal to many people. That's probably why seeing Thomas Andre was so comforting. Reporters from other countries who were recording everything loudly called out the American hunter's name. People watching on television clapped and cheered for Thomas together. The crowd cheered as it looked like he was winning. Fight! Yes, beat him. Defeat him. Take down that bully. Go, go, go. But everything became quiet when Goliath's hand was badly hurt, his arm broken and blood and pieces of skin flew onto the ground. Hands that had been raised in victory fell to the sides. Some people cried quietly as they watched the best warrior ever struggle and lose. It felt like time stopped completely. Everyone was shocked, and it was as if no one could breathe. They wished this was all a bad dream, but Thomas's painful shouts kept coming through the speakers. Everyone looked very sad and hopeless. Then a hunter who looked like he was from Europe ran quickly toward the dangerous animal, and pushed it back. He wasn't alone. Another hunter with black hair suddenly appeared right next to him. People watching and reporters didn't understand what was happening. What just happened? Who were those two people? The cameras couldn't get a clear picture of their faces, because everything happened so quickly, and from so far away, but the soldiers in black who filled the street were easy to recognize. It's Hunter Jin-woo Sung. Hunter Sung has arrived. We don't even need to see his face or hear his name. We know who that is. Those black soldiers. That's definitely Hunter Jin-woo Sung. Goliath is defeated, but Hunter Jin-woo Sung has taken over. Hunter Sung's soldiers are surrounding the monsters. Yes, as the soldiers in black filled the streets of Seoul, people all over the world cheered with happiness. After already losing a very skilled hunter, people in America were deeply upset by Thomas's loss. So when Jin-woo succeeded, they were happier than anyone else. Their cheers were incredibly loud. A video of Jin-woo fighting on Jeonju Island had been watched over 2 billion times, meaning almost everyone knew who he was. Everyone around the world shouted Jin-woo's name. One person said, "I know that other man. It's Lennart Nierman from Germany." But he quickly started shouting Jin-woo's name too. All the world was watching Jin-woo Sung. Jin-woo's shadow creatures surrounded him and the three monarchs. Here on the street hidden in shadow near Monarch's domain, the army's spirits were very high. Jin-woo watched each monarch's reaction carefully. They seemed amused. The giant woman made of bugs looked around the street and laughed. So this is the new shadow army. There are a lot of them, but they don't seem very organized. The frost monarch breathed in deeply and stepped forward. Huiwoo. He took a big breath and blew a very cold wind all around. Kribok. Suddenly, everything outside froze, even the shadow army. No way. Jin-woo could only stare, surprised. The monarchs quickly defeated Jin-woo's soldiers. Jin-woo remembered a time when he fought Balan, a powerful demon monarch, in a dangerous place called the Demon's Castle. But then he only fought one enemy. This time there were many more. This time he was up against 3 enemies at once. Jin-woo attempted to rescue his soldiers from the ice by calling them back. However, they couldn't move within the icy trap the Frost Monarch had made. The Frost Monarch seemed sure they would win, having captured the Shadow Army. But the problem hadn't made Jin-woo any less angry. He aimed the blade of Kamamisha's wrath at the Frost Monarch. You more than anyone will die today. Jin-woo saw the Shadow Army as a helpful way to fight. It was too bad Jin-woo couldn't use those things, but he definitely didn't want the Frost Monarch to escape. He needed to get even with that person. The Frost Monarch made a face, like the injury on his shoulder still hurt. You terrible person. He raised his hands, and icy statues came to life, rising from the ground. At the same moment, the insect queen whistled, and the bodies scattered around, started to move. Snap, creak, snap. The bodies twisted and turned. Their bones and joints were forming until they became 4-legged creatures that crawled like spiders. Were these creatures supposed to be alive after death? No, they weren't alive after death. The bodies were being controlled by unusual bugs that had gotten inside their brains. Jinwoo noticed a magical energy coming from the bugs moving within the skulls. He turned to the Queen of Insects. Did you think we killed these people without a reason? The Queen had placed a special bug egg inside each person. The beast had killed stone creatures and harmful beings. He understood he wouldn't be able to turn his enemy's soldiers into shadow fighters. He then realized how well prepared the monarchs had been. He let out a long breath, as the stone creatures and dead bodies moved past the frozen soldiers, and toward Jinwoo. The hunter paid attention to his heartbeat. Boom. Boom. He had faced many dangers to get this far. He closed his eyes. Jinwoo was very aware of everything around him, even the smallest movements of his enemies. He had done this many times before and knew what to expect. Here they come. When Jinwoo opened his eyes, the spider monsters were attacking him. Time seemed to slow as the Kamish's wrath daggers moved quickly through the air. They sliced through the human spiders that jumped at him, cutting them in half while they were still in the air. Jinwoo kicked away a stone creature trying to hit him, jumped up and looked for his main target, the Frost Monarch. The angry Frost Monarch was pointing at Jinwoo and yelling at the ice golems, but they were too slow to stop him. Jinwoo used his special power to rush toward the Frost Monarch, moving incredibly fast like a speeding bullet. The Frost Monarch was surprised when Jinwoo suddenly appeared before him. Jinwoo quickly swung his knives, trying to hit the creature's face, which felt like the rough bark of an old tree. Clang! Before the knives could cut anything, something strong blocked their path. The Fang Monarch stopped the attack with his arm. Do you really think this metal can even hurt me? The Fang Monarch laughed, showing his very sharp teeth covered in blood. But Jinwoo also laughed. You dare to laugh at me? A dark energy surrounded Kamish's wrath before the beast realized something was wrong. Suddenly the dagger cut right through the beast's strong wrist. The surprised Fang Monarch quickly moved back to avoid the blade, but it still cut his chest. Jinwoo felt a strong power nearby and looked up. Suddenly the Queen of Insects threw a punch filled with magical energy at him. Whoosh! Jinwoo landed and immediately tried to stop the Queen's fist with his special power, but he didn't expect her to be so strong. He barely managed to block it. Pow! The Queen's fist hit the protective shield created by his power, sending out a wave of force that knocked away the spider creatures nearby. But more spider creatures appeared and chased after him. Jinwoo stepped on one and jumped into the air. He focused his energy on his dagger. A dark energy gathered around the blade, making the air around it. Seems strange. Relish. Jinwoo swung his dagger as hard as he could. The energy spread out in many directions, knocking away the creatures below. He used another attack. This one destroyed half of the stone creatures and spiders, but suddenly a huge hand came toward Jinwoo. The shadow of the hand covered his face. Oh no, the attack came from a direction he couldn't dodge, so he quickly raised his guard to protect himself. The Queen of Insects hit Jinwoo hard, sending him crashing into a building like he was a small insect. Boom! The impact was so strong that buildings across the street also shook. Jinwoo climbed out of the broken pieces of the building, but he fell to the ground, breathing quickly. He felt like spinning, and his ears were buzzing. His eyesight wavered, but he didn't have time to rest. Looking up, he saw thousands of ice arrows pointing right at him, sent by the Frost Monarch. Jinwoo stood up and held his breath as he blocked the ice arrows falling toward him. He was so quick, it was hard to see him move. But how much longer could he keep fighting against our attacks? The Frost Monarch smiled evilly and kept summoning arrows. He was waiting for Jinwoo to eventually get tired and slow down. Chunk. The Frost Monarch looked confused as a dagger suddenly appeared in his chest. A bit of his own blood was on his hand. When he looked up, the rude person was staring at him. Jinwoo had thrown a knife, even while blocking arrows. The Frost Monarch was very angry. How can a weak human hurt me? A monarch. Quickly Jinwoo brought the knife back from the monarch's chest. It hurt him deeply. A normal person would have been seriously injured. But the monarch didn't seem to feel it much. At least the arrows stopped falling. Jinwoo made an angry sound as he raised Kamisha's wrath. I told you you're gonna be defeated today. Graza, the stone creatures controlled by the angry Frost Monarch, the spider monsters moved by the Plague Monarch, and the Fang Monarch whose arm was healed, and now held a sword he took from a special storage space, like Jinwoo's Jinwoo, could follow all their actions as they started attacking again. He held two small daggers tightly, breathing deeply. Crack, Suddenly a loud noise came from behind him, and he heard a voice he was very happy to hear. My king. A few minutes earlier, he was a very loyal friend to Jinwoo, and felt completely powerless while trapped in the Frost Monarch's ice prison. Was he really this weak? What was the point of getting stronger if he couldn't help? Baru felt terrible that he was unable to do anything while his king was surrounded by enemies right before his eyes. He wished he could help, but he didn't know how. The Frost Monarch was incredibly powerful, and Baru couldn't defend against his magic. All he could do was hope his king would be okay. Luckily Jinwoo was doing well fighting his magical enemies. My king is as amazing as I thought he would be. I am so impressed. Baru was so happy watching his master fight that he started to cry, but having so many enemies was starting to become a problem for Jinwoo.